Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Stocks and welcome to the 2021 5-Yard Rush fan/analyst mock draft. And there's a little bit of a different format tonight. I am not joined by the big man himself. He is taking the week off to focus on the playbook. So I thought, well, I need someone whose college knowledge is far above mine. Ash was in a pub garden. And I thought, well, Ash has been on. Tom's turn. He's coming back. Tom joins me tonight to be my, I guess, knowledge guy as I host the draft. Tom, thanks for coming on, man.
Hi, mate. I prefer the term Plan B, seeing as though you've got in touch with Ash and he's in the pub.
No, I haven't. I know Ash and I know he's in the pub. So, Ash, if you're listening,
it's a good guess. It's a good guess.
With the weather down here, as nice as it is, I can only assume that it's fairly nice where you are.
It's not so bad. It's not so bad. It's as good as it gets in this part of the world.
I say I can only assume because Tom is not on video this evening. He's black screened me. He's given me the privacy treatment, so I can't see out of the window in his office. So I'm assuming that it's nice because it's nice here, and it must be nice down south with Ashes. So I imagine there's some sort of cheap lager or a cider in hand in the sunshine. And in fact, you will be hearing from Ash at pick 24 because he is picking for his beloved Pittsburgh Steelers. So the format for tonight is a mock draft. We're doing the first round. We've got people picking from, I guess they're all friends of ours, Tom. Friends, analysts that we know and love throughout the community, and everybody's picking for their team. I think it's their team, or there's a couple of teams maybe that we sort of handed out, right?
I think so. We were very close to having a full set of teams. One thing I will say before we get going, when you're trying to sort of grade picks or evaluate picks, like I am not inviting experts and analysts on again, because sometimes when they just get a pick so right, what's there to evaluate? So there wasn't a single pick that we've seen that I thought I absolutely hate that pick. So there'll be no Colin Cowherd from me tonight. I'll be as balanced as I can.
When we get to the Dallas Cowboys at 10, I've got a couple of comments on that, but that's only because of the pick, not because it's the wrong position, but the player taken. But I don't hate it. I just don't think he's the best available at that point for me. But I mean, with the fans that they're waiting, the video's up. Lee's done a tremendous job of the slides for this program. So Lee, we thank you very much. And Tom, it's only right that we start the 2021 mock draft by announcing that the Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock, and making their pick is, this spreadsheet's in the wrong order.
Patrick.
There we go. Why can't, because they're at the top. The Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock, and our friend Patrick from the Long Snapper podcast is making their pick.
With the first overall pick in 2021, the Jacksonville Jaguars select quarterback from Clemson, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, how could we not? The guy's phenomenal. A generational talent that we'd absolutely be fools not to.
Well, no surprise there, Tom. No surprise there at all. Trevor Lawrence was picked by the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 1.
Yeah, I was sitting there patiently at 2 waiting for chaos, but like Patrick said, they would be fools not to. And I can't remember where I heard it said, but about a week or so ago, there was one talking head or another over there in the States that said, even if the brass at the Jaguars do like Zach Wilson ahead of Trevor Lawrence, let's assume that Chris Sims is right. you can still get away with picking Trevor Lawrence because the whole world has him as QB1, and you can get away and not lose your job through picking him. But let's be honest, we've been looking forward to this number 1 pick for over a year, and so, as Patrick said, they'd be foolish not to take Trevor Lawrence.
Absolutely. We should point out that this was done a little while ago, so there are a couple of picks which may have been influenced somewhat by, like for instance, the Arizona Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, James Conner may have changed that pick, but actually, I still don't hate the pick for them in the long term. So when we get to them, we'll talk a little bit about that. But Tom, the Jacksonville Jaguars, unfortunately, we should also say that trades weren't allowed in this. So even if the Jaguars did want to trade down, there wasn't the opportunity.
No, and when you've got so many people involved and you can't really bring future picks into it, it can get very messy very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, Tom, The New York Jets are on the clock, my man. Over to you.
Hey, Stocks. Hey, Tom. Thank you for having me on. It's Joe Douglas, of course, General Manager of the New York Jets. With the second overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Jets are going to select Zach Wilson, quarterback out of BYU. The great rebuild of this program is entering year 2. Of course, it's not just the quarterback position where we will reset, but we have a new head coach and offensive coordinator in Robert Saleh and Mike LaFleur. What we wanted to do was find the quarterback that matched our new offensive coordinator's offense, and Wilson, for me, is the right man to take the job. He recovered from a torn labrum in 2019 and showcased the strongest arm in this draft class in 2020. He was careful with the ball, throwing just 3 interceptions, and he showed athleticism in bursts as well. We do believe that this is the player with those special traits to take this program to the next level. That New York GM was a smart guy, wasn't he?
I tell you that he's got some suave about him, shall we say?
Yeah.
I mean, Tom, Zach Wilson at 2 has been penciled in for pretty much as long as Zach Wilson, halfway through his season, right?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we knew the Jets were gonna not get that number 1 overall pick, it seemed that Zach Wilson was their guy.
Absolutely. And my sort of I'm not going to say love affair, but my relationship with Zach Wilson began with a text message from you early on in the season. We were talking about quarterbacks in the college game, and after about 2 or 3 games, you sent me a text message to say, "Where's the Zach Wilson love?" And it's safe to say that he's had plenty of it since starting his junior year at BYU. Now, I would not be surprised if Justin Fields is the pick. I know that the whole world knows that it's Zach Wilson. I wouldn't hate it if it was Justin Fields. I think those two are very close in terms of talent. Fields is probably more pro ready at the moment, but Wilson seems to be at the moment the fit in that offensive scheme.
So hand on heart, if you were genuinely picking for the Jets at 2, which for this exercise you were, what do you have Zach Wilson ahead of Justin Fields, or is it purely based on that scheme fit? You think he is better for the Jets than Justin Fields?
I think he would be. Well, I'm making some big assumptions about what LaFleur's going to do when he brings the offense over, but all signs seem to point that Wilson will be the guy. Right now, I've got Fields as my second quarterback. I think that as a prospect, Justin Fields is a better prospect than Zach Wilson. But it's one of those situations, both the Jets and every other team reaching up for a quarterback at the top of the draft, they have to believe that they won't be in this position again. As a new head coach, Robert Saleh, you have to think that we're not going to be in the top 5. Now, the rest of the world is going to say, yeah, but it's the Jets, and they will be. Robert Saleh can't believe that. So you have to go and get the guy that you think is going to be the natural fit, and he seems to be it.
Absolutely. I also have Justin Fields as my second quarterback. And funny, you mentioned our in-season chat about Zach Wilson, when I did message you, and I looked back upon that text and I said Zach Wilson balled out last night, and I actually quote that in the playbook this year. I quote our conversation about Zach Wilson there. They're sort of ruining one of the highlights from my Zach Wilson write-up in the book, but did you know Zach Wilson took 2 girls to his prom?
I did.
That's
the high school prom, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you've got any worries about Zach Wilson not being dudish enough to be a quarterback in New York,
he's got the moxie. Don't worry about that.
So the San Francisco 49ers are on the clock, and there may or may not be a video for this when it comes out. So Lee's going to do some wizardry, or I'm just going to tell you that they took Justin Fields at 3. No surprise here. Quarterback, Ohio State.
Yeah, you don't come up and pay the price that they did without coming for a quarterback, and I never bought into the Mac Jones rumors. Now, if we can look back after the draft and Mac Jones is the pick, you can record this, cut it up, and I'll retire from podcasting, because I hand on heart do not believe for 1 second that they have sold the farm for Mac Jones. I think Fields is, as I said, the second quarterback on the board. He's pro ready. That provides a bit of a situation for San Francisco, because in an ideal world, Garoppolo plays in 21. and the rookie sits. And that's what makes me think that we can't rule out Trey Lance to the 49ers. However, as a talent, as a quarterback, Fields is undoubtedly more ready and has shown more in the college game.
Yeah.
If it's Fields, I don't think Garoppolo stays.
See, I think the Denver Broncos are in there's a chance we move up to maybe 4 if we want to pay up for the Falcons, and there's a chance we go after Trey Lance at 4. I just can't see us paying up for somebody who, it's not as if we have a veteran quarterback for him to sit behind. And, you know, if Drew Lock struggles through the first half of the season, they're going to put Trey Lance in because of the price we've paid in the draft in order to move up. You know, you can't have him sit there with Drew Lock floundering. It's almost a pointless exercise. And I don't think, as good as Trey Lance is and what his ceiling could be, I think he needs a year. And I think the next pick is perfect for Trey Lance. But along the same sort of line, I think you're right. If Justin Fields does go to San Francisco, Denver could be a team where Jimmy thinks, well, I can go there and I can start.
Yeah. There'll be a lot of teams calling about Jimmy Garoppolo. But I think everybody knows that the 49ers are coming for a quarterback and they're going to be getting some phone calls.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, the Niners pick is in. And next up on the clock are the Atlanta Falcons, and our man Owen from 99 Yards is there to make their pick.
It's Owen here from 99 Yards, picking on behalf of the Atlanta Falcons, and with the 4th pick, the Atlanta Falcons will be selecting Trey Lance, the quarterback from North Dakota State. Look, Falcons fans are going to be split as to whether they should be selecting a quarterback in this draft cycle or not. I completely get that. Matt Ryan is still more than good enough, and players like Penny Sewell, Kyle Pitts, they're going to be really tempting here. But for the Falcons, they now need to start looking to the future, and for the front office point of view, they don't want to be picking this low down in the draft again, so picking a quarterback won't be a wasted pick, it'll be more like an investment. The Falcons need to make the most of the opportunity they've been handed by selecting 4th overall and selecting a quarterback of Trey Lance's stature. Lance has all the potential and the ability that you want. He has all the traits and the upside to be one of those transcendent quarterbacks that the NFL now love. And a player like Lance, they check all the boxes. The fit of Lance in Atlanta as well, and the ability to sit him for however long is necessary, provides the Falcons with the perfect opportunity while Matt Ryan is still under contract. For Matt Ryan, still only 35, he still has a good few years left in him. But now is the perfect time to pick a quarterback who has all the tools and maturity to give a seamless transition and evolution when it comes to Ryan's departure.
So we just talked about him, Tom. Trey Lance to the Falcons.
Yeah, and as Owen said, a look to the future and an investment. And just like at San Francisco, I think Atlanta's in a great position where Lance could sit behind Ryan, learn his trade, and then start one, possibly more than 1 year into his rookie deal. You don't really want to spend 2 years of a rookie deal sat on the bench. And the one thing I will say about that quarterback situation is that's 2 very different QBs on the roster. And it will be interesting to see if that is in fact the pick, how long it is before we see Trey Lance. Or do we see Trey Lance on, I don't know, a 3rd and short situation and almost playing as a wildcat? We may see flashes of him in his rookie year there. You know, I love Trey Lance. I know he's QB4. I know that. I know there are 3 guys more talented than him, but I have never wanted a prospect to succeed more than him.
Yeah, it's definitely dividing the camp right now, and I'm firmly entrenched in the Trey Lance side with yourself. So, be interesting to see what happens. The 5th pick is about to be made, and the Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. And our boy Adam from Touchdown Tips is about to make the pick, and that's 2 top 5 picks in 2 years for Adam. So he's had himself, and essentially with the quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, 4, he's got the first overall pick again this year, as Murph said on the podcast. So that's not bad, Adam. 2 first-round picks in 2 years, or 2 number 1 overall picks, essentially. Here's Adam with their pick.
Hi, I'm Adam Walford at Touchdown Tips on Twitter, touchdowntips.com. I had the pleasure of picking for my Bengals at the number 5 pick, and as the 4 quarterbacks went first, we had the choice of any player on the board. Kyle Pitts obviously was a consideration as a possibly generational tight end. Penny Sewell, obviously the one that quite a lot of experts believe they should take because the offensive line needs work. They did spend a lot of money in free agency, though. And the other position that needs work is wide receiver. So we are teaming Jamar Chase back up with his college quarterback, Mr. Joe Burrow. They had a brilliant connection in college. There's not much more to say. They've seen comparisons to AJ Green, to Julio Jones, to Calvin Johnson, many comparisons for Ja'Marr Chase, and pairing him with Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, obviously in the passing and the running game for him. I think that's a heck of an offense. There's a possibility of taking offensive line in the second round. Leatherwood is the one that I keep seeing mentioned. He's a guard. Then we'd have Jonah Williams one side. We signed Riley Reef in free agency, fill up the guard spots, and that's at least a decent starting offensive line. So yeah, we went with the fun task, the fun choice of Ja'Marr Chase, and we will leave it to see what happens in the actual draft. Honestly, Sewell or Chase, I'm happy with. I don't think they'll go for Pitts. Hopefully, frankly, the Falcons will take Pitts, and then it'll leave that decision out of their hands. But we'll see in real life. But yeah, this one, Ja'Marr Chase.
Now, Tom, this is just greed and in my opinion, sorry, Adam, stupidity here. You can't go taking Ja'Marr Chase at 5 and not taking a tackle to protect Joe Burrow.
Completely agree. I mean, the only reason the Bengals are at 5 is because of the performances of Burrow prior to the injury. And we saw at the uniform reveal the great scar down, I think his left leg, down his left knee. This for me is a luxury pick in Ja'Marr Chase. I completely get the logic. I mean, their understanding at LSU was incredible. And it's not as though Chase was the only offensive weapon. We had Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson. There was weapons all over the pitch. For me, I don't think that the Bengals are in the position to make that luxury pick. It has to be Penei Sewell for me here.
Yeah, I completely agree. Obviously, we'll get to Penei Sewell in a tiny little bit, but with the Bengals making that pick, that is pure luxury. And unless they decide to throw the rest of their draft picks at a late first round pick to try and move up to get Tevin Jenkins or DARRISAW maybe, or someone like that, this is madness. But hey, it's a mock draft, and that's why we love them. So with that being said, the Miami Dolphins are on the clock, and our boy Lee is there to make the pick.
So with the 6th pick in the 5-yard rush mock draft, on behalf of the Dolphins, I'm selecting Jalen Waddle. There'll be people screaming right now. I'm sure Stocks and Tom are going to break this down. I want to give to one of his guys, so that narrowed it down to the 2 Bama guys for me. I think Jalen Waddle offered something on special teams as well, which, people will be saying you can't use this first round wide receiver on special teams, but I think Brian Flores is the kind of guy that's going to, especially as a rookie, maybe not after that, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did use him. So I think Jalen Waddle stretches the field east and west really well. A great slot receiver. We know that's where Tua thrives, is throwing to guys in the slot. So with bringing on Will Fuller in the offseason as a field stretcher, I think Jalen Waddle complements that perfectly. Also allows you to move on from a player like Albert Wilson and save valuable money against the cap for this year, especially going forwards.
You selected Jalen Waddle, wide receiver from Alabama. I did text Lee earlier on today, Tom, to see his thoughts on this pick, and he said to me the Miami Dolphins they're going to go out and get a wide receiver, and he believes that they'll take either Waddle or Smith ahead of Ja'Marr Chase because of that Alabama link with Tua.
Again, I get it. Just like we said with Chase and Burrow, the connection there. And I like that Lee has gone for Waddle over Smith. And for me, you've got Devontae Parker and now Will Fuller, who can do something on the outside. Waddle is going to be a great slot option for Tua. And we saw a lot of short yardage, intermediate throws from Tua Tagovailoa in his rookie year. And so I think Jalen Waddle could be involved right from the very start. I'd be interested to hear from Lee that if the Bengals had have gone Penei Sewell, would he have been tempted to go with the tackle ahead of the receiver?
I don't think he would. I think he's fairly happy with the additions they've made along the offensive line in the offseason. And I think for me, there is a clear draft plan for Lee, and that is to go wide receiver, running back. Obviously it didn't work out in this draft that way, but
no, I think we'll come to that when pick 18 rolls around. But unlike the Bengals, I do believe that Miami are in that position of let's go get some luxury guys. Let's go get a Waddle, a Pitts, a Najee Harris, a Travis Etienne, and let's have some fun with it. Because this team, if everything clicks, the Dolphins are going to the deep stages of the playoffs. And I'm not going to like that. As a fellow AFC East fan, I'm not going to like it. But I do think that the Dolphins are very close to hitting on something special.
Yeah, well, they've certainly done well with their rebuild, and the organic tank has proved to, if Tua can make a step up and be what the guy they drafted him for, I think that you're right. I think there's going to be some serious playoff contention from the Dolphins next year. And that moves us nicely onto pick 7 with the Detroit Lions on the clock. And this was a position of absolute need, Tom. So why don't we let Robert from Roar of the Lions take their pick, and we can discuss it.
With the 7th pick of the 5-yard rush mock draft, the Detroit Lions pick Devontae Smith, wide receiver, Alabama. Now, there were quite a few picks that I'd been considering at the pick 7. We had, obviously, Devontae Smith. We also had the other two top wide receivers in Waddle and Chase. Also considering Pitts and Sewell. Now, I went wide receiver as essentially the wide receiver room for the Detroit Lions is practically bare. And there's a definite need there, more so than the other positions, I would say. Given at the start of this offseason, there was only one wide receiver under contract in Detroit. So Devontae Smith's going to come in and he's going to immediately become a wide receiver 1. Now, there are issues in which I would consider with Devontae Smith is that his build type is the durability over a long period of time. So that's definitely a concern that I've got. With regards to Pitts, again, another serious contender. We already have T.J. Hockenson, and although I know he's essentially a wide receiver in name, I just couldn't bring myself to take another tight end, given just how well Hawkinson's been performing and the sparsity of the rest of the wide receiver room. There has been talk online with regards to Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions, taking a quarterback. I don't believe that's going to be the case. At the moment, Brett Holmes was assisted in the scouting of Goff. I believe he's got something, or the Lions believe he's got something, and that they will at the very least give him a couple of years just to kind of establish himself, see what's available, just see how he's going to cope under this new coaching regime, and just see what's available. Devontae Smith is going to come in and basically be an immediate starter, and with any luck, he's going to get some performance issues to help raise not just his game, but also to give Jared Goff some weapons, just to kind of so that he gets a fair assessment himself for his role in the future of the team.
Well, it's no surprise, Tom. They took a wide receiver, Devonta Smith. Alabama is now a Detroit Lion.
Yeah, and I expect the Lions to go wide receiver here if they don't decide to trade down. I think if one of the quarterbacks slides on the night, we might see Detroit being one of those teams that can come back. But if we look at that wide receiver room, I mean, Quintez Cephas, I think is he wide receiver 1 on the depth chart at the minute. I know I've been picking him up in some dynasty rosters that I've got, so they desperately need some wide receiver help. I'm not certain Devontae Smith it's the best landing spot for him, but maybe that's me some lazy analysis thinking about Detroit and their recent struggles on offense. So, what do you think about Pitts to Detroit and pairing with Hockenson?
Personally, I absolutely hate it. No, that's not fair. That's me with my fantasy hat on saying that they couldn't even use TJ Hockenson properly, really, and he was one of the best prospects tight end recently. So obviously Pitts is a different beast. We know what he's capable of. I mean, I saw a photo of him today benching 365 or 385 pounds in order to get some of that functional strength up for his blocking. I mean, as if he needed to do any more. I can see it working just the way that the Rams had several tight ends and either rotated or played with 2 on the field at once. And I think, you forgot Tyrell Williams in their wide receiver room, and I think he could you know, he hasn't been hugely successful at the Raiders, but he does have that sort of outside-ish. He does play as an outside, and I think if he can stay fit, and maybe Jared Goff can not hyper target, but really lock onto him, I think that's a good move for Smith as well, because Smith can float about then and perhaps take less coverage with Cephas and Williams. But I don't know. I think
the thing for me for Smith, I think he could be the main guy in Detroit if he hits.
100%.
I know that there's a lot of people out there that don't like his size. They don't like 170. Beyond that, there's nothing to dislike. I mean, we've got to remember this is the Heisman Trophy winner, and wide receivers don't win the Heisman Trophy in this day and age, and that is despite the concerns about his size. The thing for Smith is he's clearly going from an offense where he's surrounded by talent, and he's one of many very talented guys.
Mm-hmm.
When in the NFL, I think if he lands on Detroit, he's going straight in as the number one guy there.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think, you know, people knock his size, and that might be fair if he was playing in a smaller division. But when you play for Alabama, you play against the best teams. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he's almost playing against all of the good corners he'll play against, all of the good linebackers, all of the good safeties. Everybody he faces will end up in the NFL because of how good they are. So he's played at that size in college, and yes, it's college, but I think the size thing is just, it's maybe a bit of lazy analysis. I could be well wrong, and this could just be me being contrarian, but I think the size thing is maybe a little bit of lazy analysis on people looking for something to pick on him perhaps. And because he is smaller, it's easy to say, oh, well, he's, you know, the size is an issue.
Yeah. And beyond that, there's very little that you dislike about Devontae Smith.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then, right, it's time for the 8th pick. The Carolina Panthers are on the clock, and our boy Rob is here to make the pick.
Hi, I'm Rob Cowsall, 5-yard writer and Carolina Panthers fan, picking on behalf of the Panthers. So with the 8th overall pick, the Panthers are taking Penei Sewell, offensive tackle from Oregon. I had considered taking a quarterback. Mac Jones was still on the board at this point, but ultimately, whoever lines up behind that line, the Panthers need pass protection. It could be Teddy Bridgewater, it could be a traded selection, it could be a rookie pick, but we need someone there. And to be honest, some of our off-season signings in that area have been a little bit less than inspiring. So with Sewell falling as far as he did in this draft, I think it was too tempting to say no. He plays primarily at left tackle, so with him on the left and Taylor Moton on the right, I think that really gives us some stability in those areas. It might have been a bit of a risk taking a chance on a player that opted out of the 2020 season, but his 2018 stats, 2019 stats were phenomenal. He's still very young, and he was pushing around players who were far more experienced and far older than he was, so he's definitely a talent to take. He's a monster, and that is exactly what the Panthers need in 2021.
Damn you, Rob. Damn you, Rob. Penei Sewell is a Carolina Panther at 8. And to be fair, this was it was always going to be tackle, and he is my tackle one. I don't know about you, Tom. It's leaps and bounds for me.
Absolutely. There is one guy that I like as another sort of top 10 tackle, because I do expect Sewell to go to the Bengals. I could well be wrong. I was surprised to see him fall to 8. Now, obviously, Rob mentioned that the quarterback situation, his video and his pick was recorded before the Sam Darnold trade. But even after getting Sam Darnold, I think this is the ideal pick. I mean, if we're talking left tackles that can come in and be a generational talent, he is the guy. I don't know how you'd rank him in last year's group. If he was coming through at this stage alongside that top 4, he certainly goes ahead of Andrew Thomas. I know that, but
are you basing that on last year's production? Because I'm not trying to be the negative guy here or say you're wrong, but what we've seen over the past year, for me, easily puts him ahead of Andrew Thomas. But then if there was 5 guys last year and he was one of them, would we have put him at 4 or above ahead of Thomas last? I think recency bias has swayed me a little bit on that. But I think just because of his age, I think because he is so young, I think that increases his stock regardless of whether he's perhaps better or not. And, you know, I haven't seen his pro day or anything, and you got Mekhi Becton out there last year absolutely annihilating the combine and stuff, and that increased his draft stock.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it also depends on how franchises are going to view this opt-out year as well, and how that might have affected his development, because he is a younger prospect. He is entering the league at age 20. Some might look at that as a lost year. Others might look at it as the opportunity to, you know, to save some tread on the tires, so to speak. I did not expect him here at pick 8, and I know that you're disappointed he didn't fall just one spot further. But I mean, what an off season that is for the Panthers. You know, you've got an upgrade at quarterback.
Yep.
Everything around the quarterback makes sense, and the weakness now is making sure he gets protected. And you've gone out and you've got what is undisputably the best tackle in the class.
Yeah, and I think come draft night, unless somebody really wants to move up and select, barring the Bengals not taking him, I think this is the first realistic position he could land in if they don't move back, the Panthers.
Yeah, they might be crossing the fingers and hoping that it's Chase at 5.
So on to the 9th pick. The Denver Broncos are on the clock. I'm going to make their pick because why not? Yo, what's happening, Rush Nation? It's your boy Stocks picking for the Denver Broncos at 9. I got onto the phone with my boy George Payton, and we decided that Micah Parsons, linebacker from Penn State, was the pick here. Home run pick for us. Possibly the best defensive player on the board. We needed a linebacker. We hadn't addressed it in free agency, and Parsons does everything we need. Side to side, fast, action-paced, not scared of a tackle, capable of bursting through the line and getting to the quarterback. Also can drop back into coverage and cover slot receivers, or even play a bit of DB. So Parsons, our pick at 9. Over to you boys back in the studio. Yeah, so let's move on to 10. The Dallas Cowboys are making their pick. Our mate Tim from Full 10 is going to make this pick, and we talked about it earlier, Tom. I've got some reservations, but here's Tim to make the pick for the Cowboys.
With the 10th pick of the 5-yard rush at college mock draft, Dallas Cowboys select J.C. Horn, cornerback, South Carolina Gamecocks. He wears number 1 for a reason, because he'll be the number 1 cornerback out of this class. Bit like deja vu from last year, but C.D. Lamb fell in our laps. So, yeah, we will pair him up with Trevon Diggs, who we selected in the second round last year. Big need for Dallas. Should fit Dan Quinn's scheme. Thank you very much.
So, right position, but not the guy you were expecting.
Well, I mean, listen, I haven't really done much watching of defensive players yet because they're not in the playbook. So I've dedicated my time to the offensive rookies, and everybody knows my love for Caleb Farley is pretty high up there. Being a Hokie, you know, it was sad to see him sit out last year, but I understand it because of the health of his family and COVID, and then obviously the back issues are perhaps a concern depending on what you think of them. But J.C. Horn ahead of Patrick Surtain, I can't ever envision a world where I would make that pick.
I can see this happening, you know.
Shut up, Stocks. Get on with it.
I feel the opposite to you, and the reason I feel this way is because I couldn't believe last year when the Jaguars took CJ Henderson, and that to me, you know, Henderson was like a late round, you know, late first guy, and J.C. Horn has crept up draft boards throughout this entire process.
Yep.
I love J.C. Horn. When I was looking at Kyle Pitts' tape, the only cornerback that could go toe-to-toe with him was J.C. Horn. I love his strength, his aggression. There's a lot to fall in love with. And we know that with the Cowboys, if Jerry loves you, Jerry's going to go and get you. And although Patrick Surtain, for me, is the best cornerback, there is a lot to like about J.C. Horn. And if they believe that he is the right fit in that defensive backfield, I can completely see this coming. We spoke about Farley, and he slides down the board a little bit in this mock draft. I'm not expecting Horn to be the first cornerback off the board, but I wouldn't fall off my sofa like last year when I saw Henderson going as a top 10 guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, Henderson couldn't believe it either when he was picked. So.
Yeah, I didn't know whether it was shock or disappointment, but it was one of the two.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if J.C. Horn is the right fit for the Cowboys. Not necessarily perhaps he's the best, but he's the best fit for them. Then maybe you're right. Maybe I haven't given JC Horn enough love, but somebody who has had all the love from anybody related to any form of NFL draft, fantasy, or NFL for real is next off the board at number 11. The New York Giants are on the clock. Jack Humphrey from the Kickers Mad podcast is here to make the pick.
With the 11th pick in the 5-yard rush NFL UK mock draft, the New York Giants select Kyle Pitts, tight end, Florida. Kyle Pitts is a genetic freak, standing at 6'6", 245 pounds. For us, he's the best player in this draft that's not a quarterback. We couldn't believe our luck that he was still on the board at this point. He's an excellent route runner and a highly explosive player who will help our offense immensely.
So it took 11 picks, Tom, but
No.
Kyle Pitts is finally off the board.
Yeah, and we're talking about, positional value. This is probably a sensible spot for a tight end. Now, I know Kyle Pitts is, as Jack has rightly suggested, he isn't just another tight end, and he can line up on the outside. I would be amazed if he falls outside the top 10 in Thursday's draft. Jack couldn't believe that he'd fallen that far, and neither could I. I thought it was going to be an edge rusher here for the Giants, but Kyle Pitts can't slide any further than New York if he's there at 11.
No. If he does, the next team on the clock could well take him because they love a tight end. And with that being said, the Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock. And it's Steve from Full 10 Yards. Over to you, Steve.
With the selection of Patrick Surtain at number 12, the Eagles fill not only a major position of need, but also pick possibly the best player available. Surtain is arguably the best cornerback in the draft and represents a true upgrade on what they currently have in the cornerback position. They can slot him in nicely behind Darius Slay and get him working as a true cornerback too, with the option to potentially move him over to that number 1 role when Darius Slay moves on in the future. Wide receiver was an option here, but I think that with the option of Surtain sitting there, it was too good to turn down for the Eagles.
Well, no surprise, the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, actually, maybe slight bit of surprise here. It's one of two for me, cornerback or wide receiver, and the Eagles couldn't let Surtain fall any further.
I agree. It's either defensive back or wide receiver, and we've seen the run on the receivers. It's too early for the next receiver on my big board, which is Rashad Bateman. So let's go and get what could be the best cornerback in this class. I mean, the Eagles have struggled at defensive back pretty much since the year of the Super Bowl win. I don't think they won that with outstanding cornerback play. I think they won it despite the defensive backfield they had. So it's been a need for a long time. Patrick Surtain doesn't have that elite athleticism that you would have said of Caleb Farley prior to the surgery. But listen, he's an Alabama cornerback. He's had the Saban treatment, and everything suggests that he's going to slot right in at the NFL.
Absolutely, it's a pick of you nailed it right on the head. It's either cornerback or wide receiver, and as much as I love Bateman, this is another. If he went there, I'd be absolutely horrified because we've seen what happens to wide receivers who go to Philly. So I'm happy they went corner in this draft. Next up, the Los Angeles Chargers are on the clock, and it's Josh from Full 10 Yards.
With the 13th pick of the draft, I have the Los Angeles Chargers selecting Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle from Northwestern. Realistically, offensive tackle's been on their list for at least a couple of years. Next best up on the board, rated number 2 across most guides. I think it's a really great fit for the Bolts this season as they look to protect Justin Herbert so he has another monster season.
So the next tackle, Rashawn Slater is off the board, Northwestern guy. This is absolutely perfect to protect their boy, right?
This is the first pick that I don't think I like.
Oh, Tom, why not?
Well, they've signed Brian Bulaga, right?
Yeah.
So that's your right tackle. Now, I'm not saying that Rashawn Slater cannot transition to the other side of the line, and I don't know, but one guy that I do know can play left tackle is Christian Darrisaw, and he is, for me, the number 2 tackle on the board, I would have gone Darrisaw ahead of Slater. Now, I don't know, is the intention for the Chargers there that, with this pick that Bulaga at right tackle and Slater at right guard? And if it is, 13's high to take a guard. I mean, I know we saw Quentin Nelson go very early to the Colts a few years ago. For me, it's Darrisaw here.
Okay. No, I think you're right. Was this pick made before Bulaga was signed?
That is a very good point, because it wasn't until March that it happened, and so I think you might be onto something there.
Well, Josh,
I mean, we could pretend that it was after and that I was right the whole time, but I'm not sure that'd be fair.
Well, that's fine. I'm happy to go with that. Josh, you made an error, mate. Wrong tackle chosen.
Yeah, if you haven't invented time travel, you haven't cracked it, and so
Exactly.
I do think you've made a good point there.
Yeah.
I think this pick could have been made prior to the Bulaga signing. So if that is the case, then I hold my hands up. I apologise.
Yeah, but you can only go with the information put in front of you right now. But I think we together have come to the conclusion that tackle the right tackle would have been a good pick at the time if Bulaga wasn't there, and if Bulaga was there, then I'm pretty sure he would have taken Darrisaw here.
Mm-hmm.
So next up, the Minnesota Vikings are on the clock at pick 14.
Hey guys, my name is Dwight, and I'm for the 14th pick for Minnesota Vikings. We'll pick in Gregory Rousseau. Reason being, this guy's an absolute beast. Like his last season, 15.5 sacks, a defensive end, B 6 foot something, 206 pounds. Ouch. With the Minnesota Vikings, of course, it was a tough choice. The defensive wise, they did so bad, absolutely bad. He was needed to pick. The pick needed to be either D-line or O-line. So I'll pick in this guy. Damn, scored.
Dwight picked for the Minnesota Vikings, and this for me is an absolutely beautiful pick, Tom. Gregory Rousseau, edge from Miami. They needed to put somebody opposite Danielle Hunter.
I love it. And, Danielle Hunter obviously struggled with injury last year. His season was disrupted. But you can be creative with the Gregory Rousseau. When you watch his tape at Miami, there's examples of him rushing up the middle as well as from the edge. He's raw. He needs time to develop, but he's got a great mentor in Hunter. I love this pick because, okay, maybe you'd be tempted with Darrisaw, but I love Rousseau's upside.
Yeah, me too. I think another edge. I just think you don't want Hunter to be having to do too much. As good as he is, he's one of the best edge rushers in the league, and I think if you're asking too much of him, it's not going to be as effective as if you can put somebody like Rousseau opposite to take away some of the pressure from Hunter. I think it's perfect. So Dwight, home run pick that, mate. On to 15. The New England Patriots are on the clock. Matt Inkster's picking for them. Matt, over to you.
With the 15th pick of the NFL 2021 draft, the New England Patriots select Mac Jones, quarterback, Alabama. We really need a quarterback to at least rival Newton. He was on the board, so I decided to pick him. I'm surprised he was there, but since he was, we had to take him.
So Tom, the most Tom Brady-like quarterback ends up in New England. If you are trying to, Bill Belichick, if you're trying to replicate what you did with Tom Brady, Mac Jones is pretty much as close as you're going to get in this draft class.
Yeah, and I feel like I've got to clarify my position on Mac Jones. By no means do I hate him. He's a good quarterback. He's just not Justin Fields, and it really is as simple as that for me. I think this isn't good news for New England. If New England fans are watching this mock draft and thinking they don't have to go up and get Mac Jones, they shouldn't interpret it that way. The fact that he's fallen suggests that there is this chunk of teams from Detroit down at 7, which are, if Mac Jones is falling, come and trade with us. And it's not just going to be New England in the market. We're going to see Washington, Chicago, possibly even, I don't know, maybe a Pittsburgh. There will be teams that are tempted to come up and take Mac Jones and stash him. And so New England fans, don't get too excited that this means you don't have to move up to get your quarterback. You may still have to, but it's quite obvious for New England where the need is long term. I think it's smart to bring Cam Newton back. I don't think he's finished with the NFL. He needed time to get used to the Bill Belichick system. And of course, COVID disrupted his year as well. And so I think it's a smart move to bring him back. And with Mac Jones coming in to back up in his first year, and he's ready to go in year 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think what we've heard today with the Panthers accepting calls from teams around the league, they're definitely in the market to move down, unless perhaps Penei Sewell is there, like we said. So if Denver don't want to go up and get him, I think somebody will, just because of how many teams are a bit QB needy, especially if you want to let him, like you say, sit behind someone, which they could well do at the Patriots and Washington and even the Bears with Andy Dalton now. So anybody could be in position to move up. So it's going to be interesting. Night 1 is going to be a whole lot of fun. So that moves us on to pick 16. The Arizona Cardinals are on the clock. And over to my boy Mikey to make their pick.
With the 16th pick in the NFL draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Najee Harris, running back from Alabama. Originally, we were going to go for a corner, but both of the top corner prospects, P.SURTAIN and J.C. Horn, were taken earlier. We didn't want to go for a corner that wasn't at the top, so after losing Kenyon Drake, our first choice running back, to Las Vegas, it made sense to go for the top running back prospect in the country, Najee Harris. 6'2", 230 pounds, great maneuverability, very high ceiling. Najee Harris from Alabama.
So we should preface this by saying this pick was made before James Conner was selected. Brought in by the Arizona Cardinals. Najee Harris made his way to Arizona. Mikey, obviously being a running backs coach, was probably going to take a running back here regardless. But I mean, it's not for, I guess, for fantasy and real life purposes. Najee Harris isn't going to see all of the ball with James Conner and Chase Edmonds there. But long term, I think Conner signed a 1-year deal, didn't he? So I don't hate it overall.
It just makes me feel sad for the universe that Arizona went out and got James Conner, because that Arizona offense is exciting, and adding the explosive power of Najee Harris to that offense would be a beautiful thing. So, bringing James Conner in probably means this isn't going to be the pick now, and that is a real shame for the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, but then stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened. So 17, the Las Vegas Raiders are on the clock, and Ollie from PFN is here to make their pick.
Hi guys, it's Oliver Hodgkinson from Pro Football Network and the College Chaps podcast. Big thank you to the 5 Yard Rush team for having me on again this year to make the pick on behalf of the Las Vegas Raiders. With the 17th overall pick in this mock draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select J.OWUSU-KORAMOAH, linebacker from Notre Dame University. Now, the Las Vegas Raiders are the wild card of the NFL draft. You look at Cleveland Farrell in 2019 with the 4th overall pick. You look at Damon Arnett with the 19th overall pick in last year's NFL draft. There could be any number of ways that the Raiders could go, and it would not surprise me if they made a large reach for a guy like Richie Grant out of UCF, the safety there. Certainly a massive need to address the offensive line after the off-season moves that they've made. But for me, you could take a guy like J.OWUSU-KORAMOAH. Think back to last year's draft. Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson, the linebacker safety hybrid that blurs the traditional lines between what those two positions do, what size you would technically look for in those positions. J.OWUSU-KORAMOAH is that guy in this year's NFL draft class. He's a guy that can come downfield, hit you hard, be impactful in the running game, get after the passer, but he also got that coverage ability that you want out of a linebacker that comes from his time playing safety. You look at the things he can bring to the football field. You look at the game they played against Clemson last year where Notre Dame shocked the number 1 team in the country. Owusu-KORAMOAH was the guy, the heartbeat of that defense. 2.5 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, a touchdown. These are the things that he brings to the field. He's an incredibly powerful and strong defensive player, an incredibly impressive coverage player from that linebacker position. And a lot of people will go, well, Isaiah Simmons didn't do all that well in the NFL last year. Well, it's about how you use a guy like this. You plug him in wherever you can make him work for you, and he's going to be the leader of that defense on a team that so desperately needs a defensive leader.
So with Micah Parsons gone, the Raiders decided to also go linebacker, and Jeremiah Owusu-Koromoaah was their selection out of Notre Dame. Tom.
I like this guy. I really, really like JOK. To me, he exudes Patriot. He looks like a Bill Belichick player to me. Maybe that's why the Patriots fan picked him. I love his lateral speed, and the ball carrier must be terrified when they see Owusu-Koromoaah coming for him. I mean, he hits hard. So I know that this has been a popular pick for the Raiders to go linebacker. I've seen a lot of mock drafts there. The O-line needs an overhaul. They're moving to a zone blocking scheme, but I don't think the value is going to be here, when in likelihood, one of those two top linebackers is going to be there. So smart choice in terms of need and positional value.
Yeah, I would just, don't at me, Rush Nation, or anybody who's listening. I know it's Notre Dame. I was just reading and I read it as Notre Dame. So I'm really sorry. It is Notre Dame. I know that. Let's move on to 18. It's the Miami Dolphins. Lee, you're back on the clock. And this was a shocker, Tom. The Dolphins selected Azeez Ojulari, edge from Georgia. I spoke to Lee about this because, there's Kwity Paye. There's also another edge that I'm forgetting. The Phillips chap from Miami.
Jalen Phillips,
yeah. So I said to Lee, what's happening here? And he basically said that he personally has Azeez Ojulari really high, and they wanted to go edge because Najee Harris was gone. Like we said earlier, Lee really wants a running back, and he really, really wants Najee Harris.
The 18th pick, the Miami Dolphins against Azeez Ojulari, edge rusher from Georgia. I think it's really the only position we didn't address in the off-season, or at least try to address in the off-season so far. And with my favourite player being off the board here in Najee Harris, I think ideally I'd like to have traded out, but with no trades in this, I mean, it just seemed to make sense to address a position of need. So Azeez Ojulari is the pick.
So he said Azeez Ojulari was his man.
He had a great year in 2020 for the Bulldogs. He was probably the highlight of their year. He's got great bend and speed off the edge. I know Lee's going to be disappointed that his running back is there. I'm not entirely sure what Miami are going to do at pick 18 if it isn't running back. I think this could be another opportunity if they want to, for Miami to trade down.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard them, they're possibly thinking about trading back now from that 6th pick that they traded up to get from Philly. So
I just think that's the culture at Miami now. It's, if you want to make us a mind-blowing offer, then we'll answer the phone. And it's worked out very well for them recently. And if they don't move down from the 6th, then if Najee Harris is off the board, I think we might see them moving back.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I'm disappointed, Tom. You didn't scream "Go Dogs" and do a load of barking then, considering you're now a Bulldog. But I'll let that one go. On to pick 19. The Washington football team are on the clock, and our boy Simo from 5 Yard and the BFFL is on the clock. Simo, over to you for your pick, mate.
With the 19th pick in a 5 Yard Rush 2021 mock draft, the Washington football team select Tevin Jenkins, tackle, Oklahoma State. Aggressive, powerful player, nasty in the tackles. He can read linebackers from the snap, smooth across the line on pass protection, and his blocking is superb on run plays. He can play left or right, and we need to bolster our offensive line, and he's just a good pick at this number. And let's be honest, moving forward, whoever our long-term quarterback's going to be, he's going to need some protection. And I think this is a good start.
So, without, no surprise really here, Washington not able to move up due to no trade clause in this mock. Tevin Jenkins, offensive tackle, Oklahoma State. It's a great pick to predict not only what they've got, but future investment.
Yeah, the quarterbacks are off the board by this point. Obviously, as you said, Washington can't go up and get them. So, protect the quarterback of the future before, who that is. Now, I've already mentioned Christian Darrisaw's still there on the board, but you know, from my conversations with Simo, I know he loves this guy, and he is an aggressive player. You wouldn't think so. Have you seen the picture from his roster picture at Oklahoma State?
I haven't.
Oh, he just got this lovely boyish smile, boyish grin. He's got some very sensible spectacles on, and then you watch him on the football field, and he's a mauler. He loves the physical side of the game. He's risen up draft boards to the point where he's pretty much a surefire first round pick now. And I know that Simo has a special place in his heart for Jenkins. And for me, it makes sense. Obviously, you've got the Fitzpatrick experience for a year. I think Washington fans just, you know, buy a ticket and hold on tight because it's going to be fun. But let's start protecting the quarterback of the future before we know who that is.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, you mentioned, you know, sensible glasses and a cheesy grin. It could almost be me and him, you know, basically the same. If you're watching this on video, I would be a mauler on the field as well. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, there's only about, I'd say, 90, 110 pounds difference between you. But apart from that, it's pretty close.
I mean, if there was two of me, we could consider it, maybe.
Now we're getting somewhere. That's pick 20, isn't it? 2 stocks.
Yeah. Yep. So on to 20. Yeah, that's true. 2 of me. Oh, bargain. I only need half paying. On to 20. Chicago Bears. Ben from, let me just get this right because Ben is pretty much everywhere.
He is.
Tweets from Ben, the Nat Coombe Show, NFL History Book.com and TalkSport. Ben is picking for the Bears. Ben, over to you.
Hi, I'm Ben Isaacs, and I selected Christian Darrisaw, offensive tackle, Virginia Tech, for the Chicago Bears at number 20. The Bears obviously have a massive need for a quarterback, but there were no first-round pick worthy quarterbacks still on the board at 20. So I went with another area of need, offensive line. It was a coin flip really between that and wide receiver, and I just felt there was more talent on offensive line available than there was at wide receiver. Darrisaw is one of the best offensive linemen in the college game. His run blocking is phenomenal. His pass protection just was getting better and better. He's the sort of cornerstone left tackle that you can build your offensive line around, and I expect him to be a starter very soon in the NFL. It's obviously not the sexiest of picks. Fans want it to be an exciting skill player as their team's first pick, but here I went value, and I know Bears fans won't be thrilled, but I think it was the sensible choice.
So he's made it. He's finally off the board. Christian Darrisaw, offensive tackle from Virginia Tech. Go Hokies.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let's check out the GM. You know, I thought that you know, the Chicago Bears front office was supposed to be on the hot seat, and there's Ben, merch on, sunshine in the background, shades on, and not a care in the world.
Now, Tom, you've seen all these videos. In one of the videos, it appears that somebody is either outside at a football or sporting event in the rain, or there's some sort of sizzling or motorway noise. It could well be Ben. I'm not sure. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think Ben did send a text to me to say that there was some sort of barbecue or there was Sunday roast being prepared. But, you know, that just fits with the just the laid back aura that we were getting from the Bears. And I know Ben said that this is an unpopular but a sensible choice for the Bears. But for me, it's glaringly obvious. This is great value. Darrisaw at pick 20. And again, if you're going to miss out on the quarterback sweepstakes, then get the next best thing, which is protect an average quarterback. Now, that's not a personal slight at Andy Dalton, but
how dare you?
Bears fans aren't going to want Dalton for much more than this year, and I understand that. So, you know, if you can't get the guy, then get guys that are going to protect the person who isn't.
See, I think the need at cornerback here for the Bears is much bigger than offensive line, just because of what they've lost. And I think Caleb Farley here is a value for the Bears at 20. But Ben, you know, Ben's knowledge is superior to mine, so I bow in your direction, sir. Lovely pick. Let's move on to 21. The Indianapolis Colts are on the clock. Nate from the Un-American Football Show. You're on the clock, buddy. Over to you.
Hi, this is Nate from the Un-American Football Show. With the 21st pick of the 5-Yard Rush 2021 mock draft, the 2021 AFC South champions, the Indianapolis Colts, select edge rusher Kwity Paye out of Michigan. With Nico Autry heading across the division to the Titans and Justin Houston remaining unsigned, DeForest Buckner needs some help up front. The explosive 6'4", 277-pound Kwity Paye brings some much-needed presence to the line. He's terrifyingly fast and he's incredibly physical. Paye's production should continue on its upward trajectory and help him realize his high ceiling.
So many people's number one edge, Kwity Paye, ends up on the Indianapolis Colts, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't the pick I was expecting. I certainly wasn't expecting Paye to still be on the board. I think, as I said previously, he could go as high as pick 11 to the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is the biggest need for the Colts at edge rusher?
Man, I mean, the Colts, I think they're pretty well stacked all over the field when it comes to talent. They're very similar to the Tennessee Titans in that respect, I think, and then B, in mock drafts, I've literally paid zero attention to what the Indianapolis Colts are doing. So I have no idea who they've selected in any mock drafts I'm in. I think this could possibly be the first sort of luxury pick where perhaps Kwity Paye's fallen too far and they've just thought, perhaps we don't need an edge rusher here, but Paye's so good, we've got to take him.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a soft spot for the Colts. I backed them to be a sneaky bet to win the AFC last year, and there's been nothing in this offseason to suggest that I'm not going to have a soft spot for them next year. And like you said, Kwity Paye on that edge just strengthens what's already an interesting defense, and I think this is the best player on the board for them at this stage.
Absolutely. Did Justin Houston return to the Colts? Is he still there? Do you know? Or
I think so.
Yeah,
the only reason I think so is because I'm sure I've got him in an IDP league, and he's still there. He's still there on my roster. I haven't seen fit to get rid of him. We're talking
always back to fantasy, Tom. That's why we love it, right?
I'm doing my best. You know, this is when I'm out my depth when we start talking about fantasy. So if I sprinkle a couple of references in there, people might just assume I know what I'm talking about.
No, you're doing fine. You're doing fine. It's like me. I'm just basically winging my way through this entire mock draft, Tom, and I'm hanging on to your coattails. So we can swap roles. So in number 22, we talked about the Colts being complete. The Tennessee Titans are now on the clock. And with several players leaving, this pick is I'm a massive fan of this one, and Adam from the Long Snapper podcast is here to make that pick.
This is Titans GM Adam Foxcroft reporting from the Hertfordshire War Room with the 22nd pick of the 5-Yard Rush mock draft. The Tennessee Titans select Rashad Bateman, wide receiver, Minnesota. Now, receiver has become a big area of need for the Titans, and it's going to be great to see AJ Brown have some help. AJ Brown's going to get some attention, and from everything I'm seeing about Bateman, he's going to have a lot of fun where the coverage is distracted by the number one receiver of the team. It's going to be great to see how he works out for the Titans.
So Rashad Bateman, wide receiver, Minnesota, lands up in Tennessee. I like this pick, Tom.
Me too. My initial thoughts going into the draft was that this team needed a presence on the edge, but this is a plug and play replacement for Corey Davis. You know, I feel for Tennessee because they had to wait a little while to see the best of Corey Davis, and he was on track for a 1,000-yard year this year, or the year just gone prior to an injury that disrupted him at the end of the year. But for me, Rashad Bateman, yes, he's smaller than Davis, but he's a tenacious runner. You could use him as an X or on intermediate routes as well. He plays bigger than 6 foot for me. I know a lot of people were shocked to see him to measure in at just 6 foot. And he's got the ability to get those yards after the catch, which is what they're going to miss with Davis leaving for New York.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about yards after the catch. I think I saw a stupid stat about AJ Brown's touchdowns today. Like 11 of his career touchdowns have come from 30 yards or more out, or something stupid like that. So they've definitely got yards after the catch that side of the field. But I think Bateman is a absolutely stunning ad opposite AJ Brown. And you covered it beautifully. I think he can work inside, outside. He does it all. And I think his pro day numbers were down for a reason. Perhaps the COVID caused some weight loss. And when he comes back to the NFL, we see that the weight's back on, and he can bully players. He can straight up bully defenders, and he's got superb arm skills in order to box people out and stuff. So I think wherever Bateman lands, he's going to be sort of slept on a little bit. So, Tom, pick 23. The New York Jets are back on the clock. Over to you, sir.
Hey, guys. It's me again. It's Joe. With our second pick in the first round, thank you, Seattle, the New York Jets select cornerback Caleb Farley of Virginia Tech. This was quite an easy pick to make despite news of Farley's injury. Medical reports seem to have come back positive. We're delighted to be getting a player here of his value and his potential at pick number 23. Of course, the news of his herniated disc has frightened some franchises off, but their loss is our gain. Medical reports suggest that he is ready to make a full recovery. And if this pick were to be made on talent and potential, and if we were to ignore these injury concerns, then he wouldn't be on the board here at 23. Cornerback is a position that we did not address in free agency, and we desperately need new blood at the outside corner position. We believe Farley can do that. If injuries get the better of him, then we're always able to spend draft capital next year and address the position then.
Well,
so what
Tom,
do we think? What do we think?
This is huge value. I left a large gap there to build suspense. You jumped ahead of me. You ruined it. But yeah, my boy Caleb Farley he's gone, and I think don't ruin him.
I mean, there is a chance that he could well be ruined already, and that's a really difficult thing to say about such a talented player. I mean, a herniated disc, which wasn't. I mean, Farley's agent seemed to suggest that because this was done in lifting, this was done in the gym rather than on the field. They were trying to suggest that this was good news, that this wasn't a football injury, and therefore it would be something that he recovers from. I love Caleb Farley. I mean, he can come up into the box. He loves the tackle. He's strong in the tackle. He's got elite speed and athleticism. And as you said, value for the Jets here, I think at 23. I would not be surprised to see him fall just because of concerns surrounding that injury. And as I said in the video, the Jets have got the draft capital to go again at the position either this year or again next year.
So do you think, obviously we both feel that value here at 23 is a great pick for Farley to end up as a Jets. Do you think it could actually happen? Do you think if he is there at 23, which I think is too late? I mean, I understand the injury, but I think you're drafting a cornerback here with whose upside is yet to be seen. If I've listened to several podcasts now where they talk about his upside and his playing skills and the fact that he's only done it for 2 years, converting from wide receiver. But what we've seen from him in those 2 years suggests that his ceiling is still, it's not even within reach. His ceiling is so high that perhaps he should be a top 10 pick. We saw it last year with the guy who went to the Lions, whose name now escapes me, Tom, cornerback.
Jeff Okudah.
That's the one, Jeff Okudah. We saw it last year, and everyone was waxing lyrical about him, and he struggled. So perhaps maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit with Caleb Farley, but I think you just have to, if you're desperate at cornerback, and it is one of those, we see it with Tre'Davious White and Marshawn Lattimore and Jalen Ramsey. When you do get a generational corner, they impact the game so much.
Yeah.
They change secondaries on their own. And I know secondaries are either 3, 4, or 5 guys on the field at once. But, I mean, when you get somebody who is that influential, where you just basically don't see the ball go their way, and when they do, there's a huge chance of an interception or just a pass deflected. The upside for me is way too much. So I think if he's there at 23 and you don't take him, I'd be hugely shocked.
I'd be disappointed. I mean, I would be happy if the Jets were to take a Greg Newsome at this stage at 23. So if Farley's on the board and the Jets pass on him, I'd be very disappointed. And another thing to say is the leader of the Jets defense, of the Jets secondary, left, and that's why we've got this pick. And I think that Farley
could well be that replacement in terms of a leader and a talisman on defense.
And when it comes to nastiness, he's very much similar to Adams. And
Absolutely,
stuff, so.
He's got the attitude. I mean, one of the favourite things about watching Caleb Farley is those celebrations after he brings a guy down behind the line of scrimmage. You know, he loves to have an impact on the game, and he loves the defensive side of the game for a converted wide receiver. So if he's there at 23 and the Jets take him, I might be doing my first cartwheel in a very long time.
Well, I love myself a defensive jersey, Tom. So if Caleb Farley winds up at the Jets at 23, I may have to get myself one of those nice new green jerseys.
They are very good, aren't they?
I
do like the stealth black, though. I'd recommend the stealth black.
Yeah, but black's, you know me, Tom. Black's black, man. I mean, yeah, maybe.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
But if you're, you know,
get one of each. Get one of each, and you can
Wow,
have one
okay.
one for an alternate Sunday.
Yeah, possibly. So from one half of 5 Yard College to the other, Ash is picking for the Pittsburgh Steelers at 24. Ash, you're on the clock, mate.
Good afternoon, Russ Nation. It is Ash from 5 Yard College here, representing the Pittsburgh Steelers. And with the 24th overall pick of the 2021 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select running back Javonte Williams out of UNC. Reason for the selection here is despite the needs on the offensive line, there's no denying the Steelers' run game last year was putrid and needs an instant impact player, someone just to take it to the next level. Obviously, with Connor gone and a few running backs that aren't really the main guy, what Williams offers is all-round gameplay. He's a big-bodied running back that will power through and rarely gets taken for a loss. He'll push forward for those extra yards, but he's also very effective in the blocking game, the pass blocking game, which obviously Big Ben is going to need, and the reception game. He just offers that that extra little bit that you want from an all-round running back. So there's two ways that they can go here. It is obviously that Williams will be the number one with the likes of McFarland, Samuel, Snell stepping in as the relief players, or they could stick to a committee approach to save the legs on Williams, which I don't think he needs because he had that split at UNC. He definitely has the capabilities of being an all-round, every down running back, and will be an instant boost for this offense. Running back was the decision here, especially with the depth in the offensive tackle and the offensive line as a whole in this draft class. Thank you very much. Been a pleasure to be a part of this as always, and I will see you all very soon.
Now, Tom, I know that Javonte Williams is your running back too. He was Ash's selection for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
He was, and obviously because it's Ash, I've got to say that I hate it. Right? I can't tell you that I like this pick.
No, this is Switzerland. This is a neutral ground. You can tell him you like it.
So I knew Ash was going to go Javonte Williams here because it's Ash's running back one. And when we did our last version of the top 100, we argued over Javonte Williams and Najee Harris. He won that one, and he got to put Williams as his RB1 on the top 100. But there is a lot to like about this guy. One thing that I would say, and Ash knows the Steelers far better than I do, but what I've seen in recent drafts is that Pittsburgh take running backs on day two. You know, we see somebody like an Anthony McFarland. I think Anthony McFarland went on in the 3rd round last year. I might have overestimated that pick. I really like Javonte Williams, but I do think that the Steelers would address the offensive line here and then go running back on day two. But because this is Ash playing the role of GM, I am not surprised because Javonte Williams is his guy in this draft class.
So I think your logic is right. But when I was doing Javonte, I love Javonte Williams. He's my number 3 behind Etienne, just because I think Etienne's ceiling could be frighteningly high in the NFL if he lands in the right place. Now, Javonte Williams was a close third. When I was thinking about players who Javonte Williams is very similar to, I thought Lev Bell, like Javonte Williams and Lev Bell were very, very similar in running style. And Lev Bell was great in Pittsburgh, so why not pick up another Lev Bell?
Yeah, I think Williams has more of a freight train style to him, but that's what pops out on the tape. I mean, his contact balance is incredible, and defenders just bounce right off him.
Yeah, well, I don't hate it overall. I don't.
And if Big Ben continues his regression, then let's just give him 20, 25 touches a game and see how they get on.
As long as they fix some of that offensive line trouble, otherwise they're going to break Javonte. So Jacksonville Jaguars are back on the clock at 25, and our man Patrick is returning to make that pick.
With the 25th overall pick of the 2021 draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Elijah Vera Tucker, offensive lineman from USC. Given the state of the Jaguars roster, we can pretty much afford to pick best player available and we're likely to hit a hole in the current squad. Elijah fits that bill for me very nicely. He's a very strong, athletic offensive lineman, played predominantly at left tackle, which is probably our second weakest position on the line, and if he can't displace his man there, then we have a severe problem at right guard, which he could definitely fill. So drafting a player to protect Trevor Lawrence and avoid ending up in a Joe Burrow at the Bengals injury table situation seems like a sensible move to me with this pick.
So you pick up a shiny new toy, and then you go and get yourself a decent box to put him in. Elijah Vera Tucker, guard, USC, makes perfect sense.
Completely agreed. Those were the first words I wrote on my notes. Makes sense, full stop. You know, Patrick and I have had a conversation in a text message about Jacksonville's situation, and when he was running through their needs, I replied with that Spider-Man meme for the Jets. It seemed to be, in a word, everywhere. Now, as you said, Vera Tucker, he's got that versatility. You've listed him there as a guard, and I know that Patrick mentioned him there as well. But there is nothing to say that he couldn't play at either tackle position. Just from your point of view, Stocks, would you be tempted to go for a sexier pick, or do you think line's the one?
I think it's the one. I think it makes the most sense from a franchise point of view. I think we've seen it. I don't think it really matters how generational your quarterback is. You can only take so many hits. I mean, we've seen it with Andrew Luck, and he took so many hits that one day he just decided he didn't want to play football anymore when still in the prime of his career.
Yeah.
And it isn't sexy, but we all know that sensibility in drafting and adding in free agency at either line, battles are won in the trenches. Teams win from being built in the trenches. When you look at a team who, for instance, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their defensive line is ridiculous.
Fearsome.
And that was one of the main reasons. Murph will argue with me here that there was other reasons they won the game, but their defense was so good last year. Tom Brady could go out and be Tom Brady. You look at someone like the Colts offensive line. Their offensive line is so good, it enables them to do things that perhaps they shouldn't be able to do with the weapons that they don't necessarily have. So I think it's a sensible pick. Perhaps maybe some sort of edge rusher here if the good guys hadn't gone, saying that Phillips hasn't gone. So, but I think anything along the offensive line, there isn't a wide receiver. If there was a value pick at wide receiver, maybe that would be a tasty add here to give Trevor Lawrence another weapon. But they've got DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault.
There's enough there, isn't there?
Yeah, and they don't need a running back with James Robinson. A running back here would be a luxury pick. So the only
they've got pick 33 as well, So I certainly don't hate taking Vera Tucker here. He's going to improve that line, absolutely. And he's, like I said, he's got that versatility that they can utilize. And I suppose that, they're picking again in 8 picks time to improve, maybe go defense later on. I'm not sure, but
my only thought here, Tom, is if the board was exactly the way it is, Travis Etienne is still on the board here. And do you give your quarterback his like best mate from college, running back friend, and then go guard in 8 or 9 picks time, however many it is?
So that was my favourite thing to do in some of the early mock drafts. You know, if anyone listening wants to go back to some of the mock drafts that we put on the site in November, I was saying to Jacksonville, you know, if you get Trevor Lawrence, if you win this sweepstake, pick Travis Etienne up. They might get away with waiting until pick 33. But like you said, he's on the board here at 25, and I wouldn't be against a reunion.
I think, I don't know if there's a market out here in the betting world, but if you think running backs, especially last year, apart from, you know, the end of round one where CEH went to the Chiefs because Mahomes said, I want that guy, running backs went later. I think once you get past the Steelers, if perhaps Harris does go indeed to the Dolphins and then the Steelers decide to take Williams, or let's just play devil's advocate as it is now, there isn't a team between the Steelers and the Jags picking at 33 that I necessarily think running back. I don't think any of them scream to me that they will pick a running back. Now, I know there is a running back later on with in this one with Etienne going, but can you see it between pick 25 and 33?
No. There's one team maybe, but no.
So maybe Patrick's plan all along was Jacksonville, you know, to go offensive guard at 25 and then Etienne at 33.
And get the guy, yeah.
In which case, Patrick, I tip my hat to you, sir. Well played. Let's move on. The Cleveland Browns are on the clock at pick 26. And our boy Jack from the Paul Brown podcast is making that pick. Jack, over to you, my man.
With the 26th pick of the NFL draft, the Cleveland Browns tried to trade down. I was ringing through the phone book. Unfortunately, I didn't have any of the other GM's phone numbers, so I hit them up on Twitter. No answer. It was a perfect board for the Browns to go down. There wasn't anyone they were in love with. They wouldn't have minded Kwity Paye if he was still there, but he went a few picks early. So the question was, what do they do? And there was lots of corners. There was a few different ones that took interest. And where the Browns are at the minute, it's edge or it's corner. None of the edges were left that they were in love with. So Kwity Paye had gone 5 picks earlier to the Indianapolis Colts. So that had more or less taken that off the board. There is a shot that they go with Phillips, but unfortunately, I'm not a doctor. So I took that one off the board, but I could certainly see them take that in real life if they've got more information as a team. Or if it comes out later in the draft process. So I was basically down to corners at this point. And there was a few different options. The ideal scenario, hey, trade back. Whether you go to the end of the first round, maybe get a future third. You go sort of all the way back where I would love to be at that mid-40s, get that extra second for 2022. And then you can just take a selection of what's there. But the sort of corners that stuck out for me was Greg Newsome and Asante Samuel. You've got some other ones there as well, Stokes and Melifonwu. But they're basically the 4. We were never interested in Farley because of the back concerns. And it then comes down to the height question. And this is tough to know for the Browns because we've got Greedy Williams, who was okay in the first year, out last year with a nerve injury. He's 6'2". We've got our other corners, they're quite small. Denzel Ward, 5'11". Troy Hill, who's slot corner, just signed 5'10". So the question is, hey, do we have the height to match up against Chase Claypool in the division? You got Higgins over in Cincinnati. Wouldn't surprise me if the Ravens bring in someone taller there. We need someone that can match up with those. So that sort of question, if Greedy's healthy, hey, he's 6'2", he can do those games. If not, they might need to double dip here. Maybe they try find someone like Gary and Conley, 6 foot, gives them an option in free agency. So out of the 3, I would say Asante Samuel Jr. is the most talented player. But he's 5'10", 184 pounds, Florida State Seminoles. He allowed 179 yards in 8 games, only a pass rating of 46.2. So very, very, very talented. got Greg Newsome, who's much bigger. You've got guy's gone out of my head. Melifonwu, who's Obi's brother. Stokes is there as well, but I think they're what they're looking at. Ideally, yeah, you flip back to 45, 46, 44, and you just take who's best. But we had to take someone. So I went out the box and I went, hey, Greedy's looking good. Let's go for the best of the bunch for me, and that's Asante Samuel Jr. Hopefully, we're not regretting Chase Claypool running all over us. But that's where I went for the Browns. Check out the Paul Brown podcast. We do 15 minutes of Browns content every single day. Keep up the great work, lads. All the best. Peace out.
So Asante Samuel Jr., cornerback, Florida State. I didn't see this over Greg Newsome, if I'm honest.
Me neither. And I didn't see this over a linebacker or an edge rusher. Obviously, he mentioned he wanted to trade back because there wasn't anyone that he loved at this position. And so I guess, you're in a straitjacket in that sense. I know that recently Greg Newsome has been the pick, but Asante Samuel Jr. has had a lot of love right from his sophomore year. And of course, that we don't know how much NFL franchises value that family connection, because, these guys will know from, Asante Samuel Jr. will know what it takes to succeed in the big leagues. So, considering this wasn't a pick he necessarily wanted to make here, I don't think it's a terrible one.
Yeah, no, again, my cornerback knowledge is pretty slim after Caleb Farley, if I'm honest. So, yeah, Jackson analytics guy. So I think he definitely would have wanted to trade back here and get some value later on. Moving on, somebody else who wanted to trade back, pick 27, the Baltimore Ravens. In this dude's chat, he suggested that he would definitely have moved back. Adam from the 99 yards. Over to you to explain your pick, sir.
Hello, I'm Adam Barton. I'm making the pick for the Ravens, and pick is in, although I have to be honest, we've been waiting by the phone throughout the draft, hoping for a big partner to trade out to the first round and get a bit of value. But no one was calling, and unfortunately, we're not allowed to do trades in this mock. The pick, Kadarius Toney, wide receiver out of Florida, and I'll come to the justification for that in a minute. But just to go through some of the bigger needs for the Ravens, an edge rusher is probably the key one, having lost Matt Judon, and again, King got away flaming out after his trade free agency. While they do have Jalen Ferguson and Tyus Bowser, who have been developing nicely as pass rushers, a premier pass rusher would be ideal to help the Ravens get over the top and fight with the cream of the crop in the AFC. Interior offensive line, having lost Marshall Yonder last year, they need to bolster that to help improve the running game and help Lamar Jackson develop as a passer. There's also the snap issues that they had throughout the season, so drafting a centre would be key, but there's no one particularly available at this spot. And wide receiver, which is what we went with, lacking the true superstar, and it was well documented their struggles to pick up a big name wide receiver in free agency. So the only way they can get big name talent is through the draft. Looking at the board, we were hoping that Elijah Vera Tucker would fall to us, which he very nearly did before the Jags snagged him. He would have offered great versatility to the Ravens' offensive line, being able to play 4 different positions. Would have enabled Bradley Bozeman to move into centre and fix that issue, and give the Ravens a bit of versatility across the line if they have injury issues, as they did last season, and with with Orlando Brown requesting a trade. The main edge prospects have already gone. Kitty Paye went to the Colts, Azeez Ojulari to the Dolphins, and Greg Rousseau to the Vikings. So they were off the board. And the main wide receiver prospects, they've long gone. Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, then they were never going to talk to the Ravens anyway. But Rashad Bateman went to the Titans just to fuel that rivalry just that bit further. If the board fell the way it has, I'd expect the Ravens to look for a trade, and they very regularly trade out to the back end of the first round just to get that bit more value, particularly as they only have 6 picks in this draft. They'll want to pick up a few more picks if they can. One option that I think could be a possibility, which would be very almost anti-Raven, would be to look at drafting Jalen Billett. Obviously, he's a boom or bust player, but it's an opportunity to get the best pass rusher in the draft. But with his injury issues and particularly concussions, meaning that he's one player away from retirement at any time, I don't see the Ravens doing that. But it would be a great opportunity to get the best pass rusher in the draft and really push the Ravens over the top if they can. So with that in mind, with a trade out and the best players out at the positions of need, it goes to the best player available policy. And wild safety, Trevor Morrig would be a great addition to bolster an already strong secondary. As he has a similar grade to Kadarius Toney, we decided to go with the with Toney as it addresses a need as well as having a similar grade to Morrig. He's an explosive playmaker. And the Ravens need a reliable pass catcher in the likes of Anquan Bolden, Willie Snead, just to help Lamar Jackson further. And obviously they've got we've got fast players at receiver and the likes of Mark Andrews already in the game, but they need just that reliable player. The only other option would, in terms of drafting a receiver, would have been Terrace Marshall, but I feel it would have been a bit of a reach at 27. Especially with his drops, it wouldn't really fit the profile of what the Ravens need. So that's it. Kadarius Toney to the Ravens.
So wide receiver, Kadarius Toney. There's some love for this dude at the moment in draft world, and it's not really for me, if I'm honest.
It's not for me because, you know, one of my guys in last year's draft class was Devin Duvernay, and he was just starting to carve out a role for himself in the slot, and then along comes Kadarius Toney and blows him out of the water and back on special teams. So from that point of view, I don't like it. But I think that there was a good point raised that, you know, with Judon and Ngakoue, edge probably isn't the pressing need or the emergency that we assumed it was prior to free agency. And as you said, a lot of people like Kadarius Toney. Baltimore, even though they've invested in the position, we've now got Sammy Watkins there, it still feels as though that wide receiver room needs to improve and give Lamar Jackson more downfield. So I can see why this was the position.
I can see why it was the position, and I've seen them move up in mocks to go and get somebody better, you know, a Bateman. I've seen them swap with Tennessee to get Bateman several times in mock drafts. For me here, of the receivers that are left, Terrace Marshall Jr. is the dude.
I'm with you, 100%.
You go and get the big outside guy. Lamar Jackson needs somebody to throw the ball up to, and Kadarius Toney isn't that guy. Terrace Marshall Jr. is a monster on the outside, and although he did play in the slot more for 2020, when he was with the guys in 2019, he was as productive as they were until the injury. And I think as an outside presence, he's one of the best in this draft class as a pure outside guy, like we saw last year with T. Higgins.
Yeah, I was trying to leave a little bit for you there, and I'm glad you've picked up on it. I think Terrace Marshall Jr. from LSU is going to be a top pick at the back end of the first round. And just to make another little sort of dip my toes into the fantasy arena, depending on landing spot, he's going to be a guy that I'm chasing in rookie mocks.
Tom, I'm going to have to shut you down here about this fantasy malarkey. You invited me to a league last year and you went and won it. So you can't sit there saying you don't play fantasy. You've pulled the pants down of pretty much everyone in the league you've made a trade with so far. I've done the honourable thing. I mean, you are. You're sort of the Nicolas Cage dude from that war film where he represents an arms dealer. I don't remember the name of the film, but that's what's happened in that league. And then there's me. Your brother approaches me for a trade, and I've got to turn him down because I would be stealing from him. I don't know if that's actually the way to win at fantasy football, but I wouldn't have been able to sleep that night knowing I'd done the wrong. And
the world knows that you're a better man than me, and you know all you've done there is prove it.
Well, I don't know if it's the right move though, Tom. I can't beat you next year if your team's better than mine this year. We talked about Terrace Marshall Jr. He comes up in a little bit. Next on the clock is the New Orleans Saints. I said that terribly, like I was almost from there. The New Orleans Saints are on the clock at pick 28, and it's stepmom Lauren to make that pick.
With the 28th pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Greg Newsome II out of Northwestern. He is a versatile, quick, very well balanced corner, and I know the Saints defense is really good. Okay, they're stout, but there is, if you want to call it weak, I guess. They were like 13th in fantasy points against the wide receiver position, but they're usually known for bulking up where they want to on defense, and I don't think that they're going to let someone like Greg Newsome fall into the second round, so they'll probably snatch him up. By the way, Greg Newsome allowed only 31.6% of pass completions in 2020. He also, I think that equates like 7.8 yards per catch according to Pro Football Focus, so he is pretty darn good, and he should be making an impact right away. But, yeah, let's be honest. They're probably not going to stay at the 28th pick. They'll likely trade up into the 10th. But all things considered, I think Greg Newsome is pretty good for the Saints in 2021. They do need a wide receiver to help complement Michael Thomas. They also kind of need a quarterback, considering Drew Brees recently retired. But the quarterbacks that we really want to take in this draft are already off the board. And they're going to roll the dice and kind of see what they've got with either Jameis Winston and or Taysom Hill. So that will be interesting for fantasy in 2021. But yeah, Greg Newsome, cornerback out of Northwestern. Who dat?
Well, in true Stepmom Lauren fashion, she went all out with that one, Tom. I think this is a decent pick for them.
Again, I just want to talk surroundings for a minute. That looks so cozy.
Doesn't it? She got the fire going on.
Yeah. Okay, Greg Newsome. Oh, so the Saints, I have absolutely no idea what they're going to do because they are in the seventh circle of cap hell. And so anyone that they trade in the first round, I mean, they can't trade back for more picks, right? Because that means more contracts to sign, which means more money that they don't have. So I don't know. Is this a signal that Marshawn Lattimore's on his way out in the future to save money one way or another?
I think you hit it right. Slap bang right in the middle of the board there, mate. I think their plan. I can't possibly speak for the Saints here, but from what I've heard, Lattimore's possibly been offered around, and Greg Newsome could be his replacement if they do get rid of that massive cap hit that Lattimore's going to ensue.
And I love Greg Newsome. He's, I think, the highest rated cornerback in the Big Ten last year in terms of passer rating when he was targeted. And he had a fantastic game for Northwestern against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. I'm a big fan of Greg Newsome.
Agreed. So the Green Bay Packers are on the clock, pick 29. And it's my old man, Bake. So for those of you who don't know, just after I started doing 5 Yard with Sparky way back in the day, I don't even know how this happened, but I bumped into Aaron on Facebook and he said, well, we're looking for writers over at Dynasty Happy Hour. Come over and submit some articles. We'll give you a team to write about. And Tom, you're going to like this. The team they gave me was the New York Jets.
I always knew you had a soft spot.
So my first 3 articles for Dynasty Happy Hour were all about the Jets and their fantasy players for Dynasty. So
they were pretty short articles, weren't they? Was the article called Sit 'em?
No, I think I massively hyped up Robbie Anderson.
Well, kudos.
To be honest, it was so long ago, mate. I don't remember, but I think I've still got it on my laptop, so I will send it to you just for some nostalgia. But
nice.
Aaron invited me to one of his leagues. It was actually a fantasy footballers Foot Clan league, and the draft was the worst draft I've ever been in my life because it was an auction draft, a 24-hour reset auction draft.
Oh god!
And I'm sure it took 4 or 5 months. It was dreadful.
I mean, credit for not losing interest.
It was also a money league, and I won it.
Okay, so that's why you didn't lose interest.
Yeah, I won it year 1, and the commissioner stated that my fantasy league takes so much. It wasn't Aaron, but he stated that it takes so much money to run the My Fantasy League part of the process that the winner got their money back.
What?
Yeah. So I got my money back, which essentially meant entry into year 2 because that was the fee. So I don't know whether the guy was scamming me or not, but I asked for my money back. So at least I didn't get scammed in year 2 and left. But Aaron, and I have continued to talk throughout the whole process. And here he is. That was a really long intro. So, Aaron, if you're still listening after this, make your pick. 29, Green Bay Packers.
Hi, everybody. Yakenbake here, representing the Packers for our exercise in the 2021 draft. As every Packer fan knows, the best part of this draft, 2020 discussion, can be over. Or can it? At the 29th pick, the Packers consider 3 players here. While the re-signing of Aaron Jones leaves Travis Etienne, running back out of Clemson, on the board, and at the time of our exercise, Bakhtiari is looking pretty good. We chose, as the Packers, to go with Terrace Marshall Jr., wide receiver out of LSU, so that we can turn the page and finally get that number 2 wide receiver next to Devontae Adams. Go Pack, go.
And perfect pick. Our boy Terrace Marshall Jr., Tom, has landed in one of the best spots for him, I think.
And every cheesehead breathes a huge sigh of relief. I mean, if the Packers pass here on a wide receiver, there will be riots in Wisconsin. I am certain of it. It's absolutely glaringly obvious what Green Bay needs to do. And Terrace Marshall, for me, looking at the board as it stands, is undoubtedly the strongest receiver on the board.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect fit. I think you stick him on the outside, move him in occasionally, and you let Devontae Adams do the damage underneath and on the broken plays. I think it's an absolutely perfect fit. And finally, Aaron Rodgers gets some weaponry to go out and try and prove people wrong. So at 30, the Buffalo Bills are on the clock. And Tom, this one, Paul from there isn't a
Paul from the universe.
Oh, I know. I'll tell you who it is. It's Paul Howard. He won a listener league this year. He won a listener league last year. And he messaged me in a group we were in and said, thanks very much for the T-shirt. I'm going to stick it in a frame and put it in my man cave. So,
in
Paul
fact,
Howard,
Paul and I have been in touch this week as well over, he got in touch after the college podcast. So, Paul's in my top 10 human beings this week. Well done, Paul.
Paul, I'm sorry I forgot it was you, mate. You're on the clock. Pick 30, the Buffalo Bills.
Good evening. With the 30th pick of the draft, the Buffalo Bills will select Travis Etienne, running back from Clemson. What can I say regarding Etienne? Hard-working ball carrier, the potential for a 3-down back, adds speed and explosiveness to the backfield, has big play potential as a back catching on screen and swing play. The Bills' offense could explode with Etienne as our RB1. Go Bills.
Now, Tom, this one surprised me. Travis Etienne, running back Clemson to the Buffalo Bills. What sort of hot mess is that backfield now?
Well, goodbye, Devin Singletary, is all I can say to that, because if you've got your pass catcher in ETN, you've got your short yardage guy in Zach Moss, I really don't know what you're going to do with Devin Singletary. 2 things. I don't expect 3 running backs in the first round. I'm expecting my over-under is at 1.5. So I'm not expecting 3 to go. I do think the Bills are one of those teams that, a lot of fans want them to take a cornerback. Well, that was the impression I was getting when I was speaking to Bills fans about prior to the Draft Doctors episode over at 5 Yard College. And I'm surprised that there wasn't a pick for a cornerback here. Maybe because we've seen a run on them that the value wasn't quite there. I'm not sure Etienne's the guy for the Bills, to be honest. And it's not because I don't like Travis Etienne, but I'm not sure how that backfield's going to look with him in it.
It's a stinking mess if that's the case. Paul, in his little write-up here, has written improvement to the position. Really good, as we've mentioned, pass catcher. And ball security is not an issue, but 3 running backs makes it one hell of a hot mess.
Everything he said there is accurate. He is right. It is an upgrade. He is a pass catching. Nothing that he said there is false. Again, maybe we're looking at this with half an eye on fantasy and what it's going to do for our shares in Bills running backs, but I really don't know how that would work.
Yeah. On to the next pick, which I think works considerably well. On the clock at 31, the Kansas City Chiefs. And Michael, I've just got Michael. Tom, any insight as to where Michael was from?
Again, Michael is from the universe.
The universe. Okay, we've narrowed it
The
down.
universe has given us Michael.
Michael from the universe of. I don't know. I was trying to think of another one, but hey, Michael, make the pick. Kansas City Chiefs on the clock at 31.
Hi guys, Mike here, picking at number 31 for the Chiefs. I've gone for Liam Eichenberg, offensive tackle from Notre Dame. 6'6", 302 pounds, big imposing guy. Excellent athletic measurables at Pro Day. He has 3 years starting at left tackle. He hasn't allowed a sack in the last 2. He's seen as good in the run game, but especially is called out for being strong on passing sets. I think this is ideal for the pass-heavy offense that Kansas City runs. He can play either side of the offensive line at tackle, which I think is great because Kansas City are down 2 starting OTs at the moment. So I think he can just slot in and be a useful guy straight away.
And offensive tackle, Liam Eichenberg, Notre Dame, position of need, Tom.
Absolutely. You just got to go and watch the Super Bowl. And I know a lot of people have said that, but you know, the Kansas City, of course, have let 2 starting members of the offensive line go, and waiting back to sort of, you know, judge their health before committing once more. In the craziest of years for football, taking a lineman from Notre Dame is a very smart thing to do at the back end of the first round, because we've seen a conveyor belt of offensive linemen from the Irish to make it, and that's what the Chiefs need to do. I think he's probably a left tackle exclusively, and I don't see that being a problem for Kansas City. I like Liam Eichenberg, and I certainly would have expected him to be taken in this region as well.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect fit for the team that need him. And if you're getting a left tackle to protect the most expensive person in NFL history, it's not a bad move at all. So we've made it, Tom. We've made it to the last pick of the mock draft, and it's only fitting that my partner in crime, Murph, makes the pick for the world champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as you were about to hear, Rush Nation. So here he is. Murph, over to you, mate. Last pick of the mock draft.
And with the 32nd pick in this 5-yard rush 2021 mock draft, the world champion, NFC champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Christian Barmore, defensive tackle out of Alabama Crimson Tide, the national champions of the collegiate game. And really, it's a blessed position to be in, not just because having pick 32 means that you're world champions unless you've traded into the pick or you've traded this pick previously. But the Buccaneers are in a really unique position in the fact that they're the only team in Super Bowl era history to return all 22 starters from their Super Bowl roster. And it just means that where do you go here? And with Najee Harris going off the board very early in this draft, it just meant that there really wasn't too many options to go for. And there are really only 2 players I was considering here after that. The first was Jalen Phillips at the edge position. And I thought that he would be a really good pickup, and for him to have fallen out of the first round, I wouldn't say is a huge surprise, but at the same token is a slight shock. I think he's higher on my board and several other boards than, and to see him for me personally, I think would be a slight shock. But the other, and the one we went for is Christian Barmore, and the reason I went there is twofold. First of all, the Buccaneers have been the number 1 run defense in the past 2 seasons. Even last year when they lost Vita Vea for several games, you know, they went out there, they made a trade, they got Steve McClendon from the Jets, and he was instrumental in keeping the Buccaneers on path there. And with the fact that you've got Ndamukong Suh constantly signing these 1-year deals, eventually you're going to get to a point where that's not going to be able to happen. And you need to start thinking about someone that you can bring in either during the season or for the future. And Barmore kind of does both because he's ready to go now. He is easily the best defensive tackle in this class, and he's someone that you can build around and plug and play in there for the next few years. And he's someone that can build a really good relationship there with Vita Vea, so that maybe you choose to move on from Sue after this year. But he's also someone that will contribute now, giving those guys a break, especially in the extended season. But as well as if you lose Vita Vea again this year and he has had injury problems, or you lose Sue for whatever reason, you have someone elite to come in there. Because I think as soon as the Buccaneers stop that ability to stop the run, and if they lose that, they're really going to be in trouble, because that's what this defense is predicated on. So that is why we've gone with Christian Barmore. Like I said, Jalen Phillips was another one under consideration, again, for very similar reasons to why I selected Barmore, but just feel like stopping that run is crucial, and would not be surprised if this was the pick come opening night of draft night, as we would conclude the evening.
So there it is, Christian Barmore, defensive line. Is he a tackle?
Yeah, he's a tackle, yeah.
Okay, so defensive tackle, Alabama. Murph talked about it being a sort of luxury pick.
Well, you're the Super Bowl champions, and Murph must have mentioned that only 16 times in his evaluation of the pick. For me, there's a lack of depth at the position, right? So I don't think you can wait until the back end of the second round if this is the position that you want to address. I think after Barmore, there is a big fall in terms of talent. There's a lot of guys that you could get on day two that there is a question mark over, but you could get some production out of them. But if you want as close to a safe bet as anything, then it's Christian Barmore. And again, you can't go wrong with the Crimson Tide. He has a lot of fans, Barmore. I think prior to the season, people were expecting him to be a mid-first round pick. He hasn't quite hit those heights in his last season with Alabama. However, he leaves college football as a national champion, and he lands himself on the Super Bowl champions. So quite the year for him.
Absolutely. I think you're right. I've seen him picked mid to late first round. Is this a weak class for defensive line, Tom, or is perhaps just because his year was, he's obviously the benchmark player at this position, and because he had a bad year, has that affected everyone else's draft stock, or is it a down year for D-line?
It's a down year. I mean, Marvin Wilson at Florida State was the guy before a game had been played. People were talking about him as a top 15 pick, and now he'll be lucky to hear his name on day two by the sounds of it. There's Tyler Shelvin, Tommy Togiai. If you're playing a three-man defensive front, you've got Alan McNeil from NC State. There is talent there, but not the kind of guys that you're willing to spend a first-round pick on beyond Barmore. And Tampa Bay, I think they're set on offense for another year. They've brought all the starters back. They've added to the defense. To the backfield in terms of Giovanni Bernard. D-line is where a gap is, if there is one at all on this roster, and it makes sense.
Yeah, especially if you're getting the best one in the class. I think it's perfect fit all round. So lucky you, Murph, picking at 32, but kudos on the pick. That's it, Tom. We've cleared the board, all 32 in the books. Before we get out of here quickly, I realise we've clocked on a little bit here, so I appreciate your time, my man. Is there any pick that you thought that's a home run pick, or is there anything you think? You said you weren't at the beginning. You said you didn't think anything was terrible, but is there anything you weren't a fan of?
No, there were no terrible picks because, as you said, because of the timing, there were a couple that have since become outdated. Like the Chargers pick, but we can't do anything about that. For me, the home run pick is Kwity Paye at 21 to the Colts. That was the pick for me where I thought, here's a guy that could well be going as early at 11 to the Giants in a favourable landing spot, and that was a swing for the fences for me.
Yeah, I think that just the pure value there makes that the pick of the draft, really. Again, I'm surprised Jalen Phillips didn't make it into the first round. That did surprise me a little bit, just because of who else we saw go. And then, you know, we said the Bengals pick was, I mean, Jamar Chase there. No, you got to take a tackle.
Yeah, Penny Sewell, please. Let's, you know, Joe Burrow could be very special. Let's do our best to make him so. Like I said, I know the connection he's got, but it's no good having that connection if Joe Burrow isn't still on his feet.
Absolutely. Not everybody can make a pass like that quarterback doing a front flip the other day, Tom.
I mean, you can try and make that pass.
It's
but
not a pass.
No, it's...
I mean, the fact that the ball came out at that velocity, at that angle, was tremendous, but the chance of it going to his player was so slight compared to the rest of the defenders.
My initial thought was that it had actually been thrown into the ground and the toe of the ball had popped it back up into the air. But I was proven wrong on a super slow-mo replay.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, Rush Nation, it's out there somewhere. Somebody will tweet it. It's a ridiculous pass. Like one of these backward passes behind the back, but he gets tackled, is doing a front flip and sort of tosses it backwards towards the end zone. And luckily for him, his receiver is there. Tom, thank you so much for coming on board, man. This has been an absolute hoot.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. It was pretty painful trying to analyze, you know, picks of people who I'm confident know more about the game than me. But yeah. I think we got there in the end.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm here. I'm here just to hold the steering wheel and hope it goes in a straight line. You're here to break down those picks for me, and you know, I think we did a sterling job. Rush Nation, if you don't know where Tom is, Tom, if this is somebody's first listen to 5 Yard Rush, thank you for holding on for the entire duration. We appreciate it. Where can they find you and the college stuff?
Yeah, come over to 5 Yard College over on Twitter. And then if you head over to the 5 Yard Rush YouTube channel, we've been putting up some film sessions on some of our favourite draft prospects. Obviously, recently, it's all been about the draft. But once the dust settles, we're going to get right into previewing the next year of college football. And the best thing, Stocks, about running or helping to run 5 Yard College has been seeing people get into the college game for the first time. And we hope to do that every year. You know, if we get just one person invested in the college game every year, then we're doing our job. So if you want to get involved, come and find us, hit us up on Twitter, ask all the questions you want to ask, and we'll see if we've got the answers.
Yeah, I enjoy it every week. It's been fun. I think the thing I've enjoyed the most about it is, you know, it's not just me listening to a college podcast. It's me listening to two of my friends talk about a subject I enjoy, but am learning about at the same time, if that makes sense. So, you know, you guys, you smash it on a weekly basis, but I get to listen to two people who, you know, I've grown friendships with, but also you're teaching me. So rather than just plugging in a random guy who's teaching me, I'm getting to listen to people that I trust their opinions. And you know, the Lonely Hearts thing was superb, where you finally wound up with Georgia. Go Dogs. Woof, woof. That was a terrible woof. I need to work on that, Tom. I didn't commit. That was my trouble. I didn't commit to it. Yeah, it's great. It's massively great. And Rush Nation, if you are listening and you're good at college fantasy football, the boys over there need a bit of a help next year in the 5 Yard battle. So, you know, we need to...
No comment.
No comment. Yeah. Let's just hope you can get Jack back on the team next year, Tom.
Oh, absolutely. Desperately need Jack on the team next year.
Jack, and if you're listening, mate, come get my trophy, because I'm not giving it up unless you beat me. Rush Nation, that was Tom from 5 Yard College. Tom, love having you on, man. Every time, huge fun. Massively appreciate it.
Thank you, mate. Until next time.
Well, Rush Nation, the draft is now, at time of recording, I believe 8 days away. Tom, if I've got that wrong, chime in. If not, carry on with your silence. That was the 2021 mock draft. I got it right. Tom didn't chime in. And Rush Nation, as always, thank you for listening. Appreciate your time. Stay safe. Enjoy the draft and keep rushing.